Iran sits on the world's fourth largest oil reserves and second largest natural gas reserves. Yet GDP per capita in 2024 runs lower than it was in 1976 before the Islamic Revolution. Sanctions have locked the country out of the international financial system for 45 years. Oil exports operate through smuggling and intermediaries. Inflation runs persistently high, and the rial has lost over 99% of its value since 1979, which means a country that should be one of the wealthiest in the Middle East instead struggles with economic isolation, brain drain, and an economy functioning decades below its potential. This isn't the first time conflict has defined Iran's economic destiny. The Achaemenid Empire in 500 BC controlled the world's first international trade network spanning from Greece to India, standardized currency across vast territories, and collected tribute from dozens of subject peoples. While Safavid Persia in the 1600s sat at the crossroads of global Silk Road commerce, when overland trade between East and West reached its peak. Iran's geography, positioned between empires, controlling mountain passes and desert routes, has always made it economically strategic and politically contested. This video covers how ancient Persia built a superpower economy through trade network control, how oil discovery in 1908 transformed Iran into a rentier state where power flows from resource control rather than productivity, and how the 1979 revolution and sanctions created a siege economy lasting nearly half a century. The story demonstrates how geography, resources, and geopolitics shape economic outcomes across 2,500 years, and why countries sitting on valuable resources in contested regions face fundamentally different trajectories than countries that must develop through manufacturing or services. 550 BC brought Cyrus the Great to power and the creation of the Achaemenid Empire, eventually spanning from the Mediterranean to the Indus River and controlling approximately 44% of the world's population at its peak. This wasn't just conquest, but economic integration on a scale never before attempted. And what the Persians built became the template for every large empire that followed. Darius I standardized the economy across this vast territory through innovations that seem obvious now, but were revolutionary then. The daric, a gold coin weighing 8.4 grams, became the empire's currency from Greece to India. And merchants knew the coins held consistent value everywhere because the Persian state guaranteed the weight and purity, while silver siglos coins circulated for smaller transactions, creating a two-metal currency system that facilitated trade at every economic level. The Royal Road stretched over 2,500 kilometers from Sardis in Anatolia to Susa in Persia, with relay stations every 20 to 30 kilometers where royal messengers could change horses and merchants could rest. Messages that would have taken months now traveled in days. Trade caravans moved safely under imperial protection. And Herodotus wrote that the Persian postal system operated so efficiently that neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night stopped the couriers, a phrase the U.S. Postal Service would adopt 2,000 years later. Taxation operated systematically rather than arbitrarily. Darius divided the empire into 20 satrapies with assigned annual tribute. Babylonia paid 1,000 silver talents, while Egypt paid 700, and total annual revenue reached about 14,560 silver talents, or roughly 450 tons of silver. Some provinces paid in kind: horses from Armenia, grain from Egypt, spices from India, and the system stayed predictable and consistent, which made economic planning possible and trade profitable. Infrastructure investment went far beyond roads. The Qanat system of underground water channels allowed agriculture in arid regions, supporting larger populations. Ports were constructed on the Red Sea and Persian Gulf to facilitate maritime trade. and canals connected rivers to improve internal transport, all of which paid for itself many times over through increased trade and agricultural production. Religious and cultural tolerance functioned as economic policy. Subject peoples maintained their own languages, religions, and local customs as long as they paid tribute and kept order, which reduced rebellion costs and encouraged merchants to settle throughout the empire. And Jewish merchants, Phoenician traders, Greek craftsmen, and Indian merchants all operated freely under Persian protection. The Achaemenid economy demonstrates principles that remain relevant today. Large empires benefit from standardization that reduces transaction costs. Infrastructure investment generates economic returns. Trade networks require security and predictability. And cultural tolerance reduces administrative costs while encouraging economic activity. And these weren't obvious insights in 500 BC, but Persians implemented them systematically. Alexander the Great's conquest in 330 BC destroyed the empire, but the economic system survived. The Seleucid Empire, Parthian Empire, and later Sasanian Empire all built on Achaemenid foundations, and the model of a large multi-ethnic empire held together by trade networks, standardized currency, and efficient administration became the template for Rome, Islamic caliphates, the Mongol Empire, and every other major empire since. If this deep dive into Iran's economic transformation across 2,500 years is what you're here for, subscribe to The Economic History. We analyze how geography and resources shape economic destiny over millennia. 1501 brought the Safavid dynasty to power under Shah Ismail I, establishing Twelver Shi'ism as the state religion and creating the foundation of modern Iran. Safavid Persia coincided with peak Silk Road commerce, and geography made Persia the crossroads between Ottoman Turkey to the west, Mughal India to the east, and Central Asia to the north. Shah Abbas I ruled from 1588 to 1629 and turned Isfahan into one of the world's great cities, with population reaching 600,000 to 1 million, making it among the largest cities globally at the time. The Naqshi Jahan Square served as both architectural wonder and commercial center, where merchants from Asia and Europe traded silk, spices, carpets, precious stones, and manufactured goods. Persian silk dominated exports. Raw silk from Caspian provinces, processed in Persian workshops, sold to Ottoman, or Indian and European markets, and European demand ran so high that the English East India Company, Dutch East India Company, and others competed for Persian silk contracts, trying to bypass Ottoman middlemen. Shah Abbas negotiated directly with European powers to break the Ottoman-Portuguese monopoly on Persian Gulf trade. 1622 brought the capture of Hormuz Island from the Portuguese with English naval assistance, giving Persia control over the strategic Strait of Hormuz and opening direct trade with Europe via the Persian Gulf. Bandar Abbas became a major port where Persian goods flowed to European markets, and European manufactured goods entered Persia. Carpet weaving scaled to industrial production. Persian carpets from Kashan, Tabriz, and Isfahan sold as luxury goods in European and Asian markets. The Safavid court established royal workshops where thousands of weavers produced carpets for export. And the craft required specialized skills that took years to master, creating high value-added production, generating substantial revenue. Armenian merchants played a crucial role. Shah Abbas relocated thousands of Armenians from Julfa to a suburb of Isfahan called New Julfa, where they established a merchant community controlling much of the empire's international trade. Armenian networks stretched from Amsterdam to Manila, and their Christian faith allowed them to operate in both Christian Europe and Muslim Persia, making them ideal intermediaries. But Safavid prosperity was being undermined by forces beyond Persian control: Portuguese, Dutch, and English ships sailed around Africa to reach India and China directly, while avoiding Persian middlemen entirely. And the overland Silk Road proved slower and more expensive than sea routes. As European maritime trade expanded, the economic value of controlling Persian territory declined. Military conflicts with the Ottomans and Uzbeks drained the treasury. Safavid armies required constant funding. Tribute from subject territories often didn't cover military expenses. And unlike the Achaemenid system, where military power enabled trade which funded more military power, the Safavid system saw military expenses exceeding trade revenues. The dynasty collapsed in 1736 after Afghan invasions and internal rebellions. What followed across the next century included instability, competing dynasties, and economic decline. Babylonia and Persia lost its position as a major trading power just as European imperialism was reaching its peak. The 19th century would bring a new form of economic subordination, making Persia's economic destiny dependent on European great power politics. 1908 brought the first major oil discovery in the Middle East at Masjid Suleiman in southwestern Persia. British prospector William Knox D'Arcy had spent years searching. And when his team finally struck a gusher, it transformed Persia's economy and geopolitical position overnight. And the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, later BP, launched to exploit the discovery while Britain gained control over Persian oil for decades. The 1933 oil concession gave Anglo-Persian Oil Company control in exchange for royalties that were a fraction of the oil's value. Persia received 16% of net profits, but the company controlled what counted as costs and could manipulate accounting to minimize reported profits. Persian governments protested the unfair terms repeatedly, but Britain's superior military and diplomatic power meant the concession remained in force. World War II demonstrated oil's strategic importance. Allied forces needed Persian oil and the Trans-Iranian Railway to supply the Soviet Union fighting Nazi Germany. Britain and the Soviet Union invaded and occupied Iran in 1941, while forcing Reza Shah to abdicate in favor of his son, Mohammad Reza Shah. And they turned Iran into a supply corridor. Occupation showed that Iran's sovereignty meant nothing when oil was at stake. 1951 brought Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh and nationalization of Iranian oil. Mossadegh argued that Iranian oil should belong to Iranians rather than British companies paying minimal royalties. The Iranian parliament voted overwhelmingly to nationalize Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, and Britain responded with an embargo crippling Iranian oil exports, economic sanctions, and diplomatic pressure. When those measures weren't enough, British intelligence worked with the CIA to orchestrate the 1953 coup that overthrew Mossadegh and restored the Shah to absolute power. The coup had long-term consequences that shaped everything that followed. A new oil agreement in 1954 gave international oil companies control through a consortium, with Iran receiving 50% of profits, rather than the previous 16%. But Iran still didn't control its own most valuable resource. And oil revenues flowed to the government, creating a rentier state where political power came from controlling oil money rather than taxing citizens. The 1973 oil crisis demonstrated oil's power as a weapon. An OPEC embargoed countries supporting Israel in the Yom Kippur War. Prices quadrupled from $3 to $12 per barrel. And Iran wasn't part of the embargo, but benefited enormously from higher prices. Oil revenues surged to fund massive modernization programs, military purchases, and the Shah's vision of making Iran a regional superpower. But oil wealth created economic distortions that would prove fatal to the regime. Manufacturing and agriculture declined as oil revenue funded imports of everything from food to consumer goods. The economy became dependent on oil price fluctuations beyond Iranian control. Massive infrastructure projects employed foreign contractors and created corruption opportunities, and oil wealth concentrated in Tehran, while rural areas saw little benefit. Income inequality widened dramatically. The rentier state created political problems that conventional development wouldn't have. Citizens didn't pay significant taxes, so the government wasn't accountable to taxpayers. Opposition to the Shah's autocratic rule grew among religious conservatives, leftists, and middle-class professionals excluded from oil wealth, and economic grievances merged with political and religious discontent. When oil workers went on strike in 1978, they demonstrated that the entire economy depended on oil, and that shutting down production could bring down the government. 1979 brought the Islamic Revolution that overthrew the Shah and established an Islamic Republic under Ayatollah Khomeini. The revolution promised social justice, independence from Western influence, and an economy serving ordinary Iranians rather than elites and foreign companies. But what followed across the next 45 years included economic isolation, war, sanctions, and declining living standards despite sitting on enormous oil and gas reserves. Capital flight happened immediately and massively. Wealthy Iranians, business owners, and professionals fled with whatever assets they could transfer abroad. Factories shut down, foreign companies departed, and the new government seized banks, major industries, and assets of anyone connected to the old regime. Revolutionary tribunals created uncertainty about property rights that still persists. The Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988 devastated the economy. Iraq invaded hoping to exploit revolutionary chaos and seize oil-rich Khuzestan province. The war lasted 8 years, killing an estimated 500,000 to 1 million people, while destroying infrastructure worth billions. And Iran was forced to spend scarce foreign currency on weapons. Oil facilities were targeted, production fell dramatically, and resources that could have been invested in development instead went to sustaining an existential war. International sanctions began with the U.S. hostage crisis in 1979 and have continued in various forms ever since. European countries, Japan, and others joined sanctions regimes at different times. But the most comprehensive sanctions came after 2012, when the US and EU targeted Iran's oil exports, banking sector, and access to the international financial system over the nuclear program. The sanction economy operates on scarcity, smuggling, and parallel markets. International banks won't process Iranian transactions for fear of US penalties. So Iran trades using barter, intermediaries, and cryptocurrency. Oil sells at discounts to countries willing to defy sanctions like China, and Western technology and spare parts are smuggled through third countries. Black market exchange rates diverge massively from official rates because foreign currency is scarce. Currency collapse has been relentless and ongoing. The rial traded at about 70 rials per dollar in 1979, and by 2024, the exchange rate exceeded 500,000 rials per dollar on the open market, representing over 99% devaluation in 45 years. And redenomination has happened twice, with the government dropping zeros to make numbers manageable. But the underlying problem of currency printing to finance deficits and sanctions limiting exports hasn't been solved. Inflation has eroded purchasing power for decades. Official inflation rates consistently understate true price increases because the government manipulates data and doesn't account for black market prices. Middle-class families that were comfortable in the 1970s now struggle to afford basics, and savings in rials have been wiped out repeatedly. Brain drain has been massive and continuous across generations. Iran produces hundreds of thousands of university graduates annually, but opportunities inside Iran stay limited by economic stagnation and political restrictions. And engineers, doctors, scientists and entrepreneurs emigrate to Europe, North America, and the Persian Gulf seeking better opportunities. Iran invests heavily in education and then loses the return when educated workers leave. The oil curse appears in stark form. Iran sits on 157 billion barrels of oil reserves, the fourth largest globally, and 1,193 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, the second largest, but can't fully monetize them because sanctions prevent international investment and technology transfer. Oil fields need modern technology to maintain production, but international companies won't work in Iran. Domestic companies lack the expertise, and production has declined from peaks of 6 million barrels per day in the 1970s to under 3 million today. The Revolutionary Guard controls substantial portions of the economy. After the war ended, the IRGC expanded into construction, engineering, telecommunications, and smuggling operations. And this military-economic nexus concentrates wealth and power, creates corruption, and crowds out private sector development, while companies connected to the Guard get contracts and resources, and independent businesses struggle. Despite all this, Iran has developed pockets of technological capability. The country produces cars, pharmaceuticals, petrochemicals, and military hardware domestically because imports are restricted, universities conduct research, and Iran maintains a domestic technology sector. Sanctions have forced import substitution and some innovation, but at enormous opportunity cost compared to what could have been achieved with normal international trade and investment. Iran's nuclear program can't be separated from economic calculations. The program is officially for civilian nuclear energy, but it provides negotiating leverage over sanctions, and when international pressure increases and sanctions tighten, Iran advances the program. While when negotiations offer sanctions relief, Iran agrees to limitations. This cycle has repeated for 2 decades. The 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action offered a test case. Iran agreed to limitations on uranium enrichment and international inspections in exchange for sanctions relief. The deal was implemented and sanctions were partially lifted. Oil exports increased from under 1 million barrels per day to 2.5 million. Foreign investment began flowing in, and the economy grew for the first time in years. For a brief period, when it seemed Iran could reintegrate into the global economy, 2018 brought U.S. withdrawal from the JCPOA under President Trump and reimposition of maximum pressure sanctions. Oil exports were targeted again, banks were cut off again, and the brief economic recovery ended abruptly, and Iran responded by gradually exceeding JCPOA limitations on uranium enrichment. The cycle of escalation resumed exactly as before. Economic impact proved severe immediately. Oil exports fell from 2.5 million barrels per day to under 500,000. GDP contracted sharply, inflation surged, the currency collapsed again, and international companies that had returned to Iran after the JCPOA fled again to avoid U.S. penalties. The pattern demonstrates that Iran's economic future depends on resolving the nuclear issue. Iran can develop domestically and evade some sanctions through creative workarounds. But achieving its economic potential requires normal international trade and investment. And that requires a nuclear agreement that both sides trust and maintain. 45 years of history suggest trust is in very short supply. Iran's economic history across 2,500 years demonstrates how geography, resources, and geopolitics shape economic destiny. The Achaemenid Empire prospered by controlling trade routes and building economic infrastructure that reduced transaction costs. Safavid Persia thrived at the Silk Road's peak, but declined when maritime routes bypassed the region. And oil discovery in 1908 brought wealth, but also foreign control and intervention that persist in different forms today. the modern Iranian economy shows what happens when enormous natural wealth meets sustained geopolitical conflict. Iran possesses resources that should make it wealthy, an educated population that could drive development, strategic location that should facilitate trade, an industrial capacity that could supply regional markets. But 45 years of sanctions, isolation, and conflict have created an economy functioning decades below its potential. The rentier state model, where government revenue comes from natural resource exports rather than taxation of productive activity, has proven dysfunctional. Citizens don't pay significant taxes, so they don't hold government accountable. Government doesn't depend on tax revenue, so it doesn't feel accountable to citizens. Oil wealth concentrates in the hands of those controlling the state, and economic development gets subordinated to political control and resource capture. The sanction economy demonstrates both the power and limits of economic isolation as statecraft. Sanctions have clearly damaged Iran's economy, reduced oil exports by 80% from peaks, limited access to technology and capital, and created genuine hardship for ordinary Iranians. But sanctions haven't fundamentally changed regime behavior or caused the political collapse that maximum pressure advocates predicted. Iran has adapted, found workarounds, and maintained political stability despite economic stress. The question is whether Iran can achieve development while remaining outside the US-led international economic system. China's rise offers one potential model of development outside complete Western dominance. And Iran has looked to China as a partner, an alternative to Western trade and investment. But China's own development benefited enormously from access to Western markets and technology that Iran lacks. Demographics complicate the picture further. Iran has a young, educated population expecting economic opportunity and rising living standards. The revolutionary generation is aging and losing influence. And younger Iranians increasingly prioritize economic opportunity over ideological purity. If the economy continues stagnating, political stability could eventually erode in ways that external pressure alone hasn't achieved. Iran's economic future likely depends on some form of accommodation with the international system. The JCPOA period demonstrated that sanctions relief rapidly improves economic conditions, foreign investment flows in quickly when risk declines, and oil exports can recover within months when restrictions lift. But reintegration requires trust that nuclear agreements will be maintained by all sides. Trust requires consistent policy from both Iran and Western powers, particularly the United States. And 45 years of mutual hostility, revolutions, coups, wars, and broken agreements have made trust extraordinarily difficult to rebuild. The broader lesson extends beyond Iran. Natural resource wealth in geopolitically contested regions creates as many problems as opportunities. Countries sitting on oil and gas in the Middle East face fundamentally different trajectories than countries that must develop through manufacturing, services, or agriculture. And resources attract foreign intervention, create rentier state dynamics, enable autocratic governance, and make economies vulnerable to price fluctuations and geopolitical conflicts. Iran demonstrates this pattern across millennia. Economic prosperity came when Iran controlled trade networks and maintained security. Economic decline came when those networks were disrupted by invasion, technological bypass, or isolation. And the current sanction economy is the latest iteration of a pattern that has repeated throughout Iranian history. Breaking the pattern requires resolving fundamental geopolitical conflicts that have defined Iran's relationship with outside powers for 2,500 years. Subscribe to the Economic History for Civilization-Scale Economic Analysis, examining how geography, resources, and geopolitics shape economic development across millennia.